If your Medicare premium has felt unfairly high ever since you retired, lost a spouse, or went through a divorce, I want to introduce you to a single, one-page form that exists specifically to fix that. It's called Form SSA-44, and the Social Security Administration is not going to mail it to you automatically, call you about it, or bring it up unless you specifically ask. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what this form does, exactly which life events qualify you to use it, and just as importantly, which situations absolutely do not qualify, so you don't waste time filing something that gets rejected. I want to be upfront about why this particular topic deserves its own dedicated video, rather than just a quick mention. The dollar amounts involved here can be larger than almost anything else I've covered on this channel, sometimes thousands of dollars in a single year. And yet, this specific form remains one of the most underused tools available to retirees. Financial professionals who work with this regularly have noted that many people don't file simply because they don't realize the option exists, or they assume an appeal like this would automatically be rejected. Neither of those assumptions is true for people who genuinely experienced one of the qualifying events. If you're not subscribed yet, take a moment and do that now, and turn on the bell. Medicare premiums quietly track income from years ago in ways most people never realize until it's costing them real money every single month. That's what this channel is for. Subscribe, and let's get into it. Let's start with what this is actually correcting, because understanding the underlying problem makes the solution make a lot more sense. There's a surcharge added to Medicare Part B and Part D premiums for higher income beneficiaries, called the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, or IRMAA for short. If your income is above a certain threshold, you pay more than the standard premium on a sliding scale that increases as your income increases. Here are the actual numbers for this year for a single filer. If your income was $109,000 or less, you pay the standard Part B premium, $202.90 a month, no surcharge at all. Between $109,000 and $137,000, you pay $284.10. Between $137,000 and $171,000, $405.80. Between $171,000 and $205,000, $527.50. Between $205,000 and $499,000, $999, $649.20, and $500,000 or more, $689.90. If you're married and filing jointly, these income thresholds roughly double at every tier except the very top one. On top of all of this, if you have Part D prescription drug coverage, there's a separate surcharge added to that as well, ranging from about $14.50 a month at the lowest tier up to $91 a month at the highest. Now here's the structural problem that makes this whole topic worth an entire video. Medicare doesn't use your current income to calculate this surcharge. It uses your income from 2 full years earlier. Your premium this year is based on your tax return from 2 years ago. Think about what that means for anyone whose income has changed significantly since then. If you were still working 2 years ago, earning a full salary, and you've since retired, your premium right now is still being calculated using that old, higher income, even though your actual income today might be far lower. The same applies if your spouse passed away, if you went through a divorce, or if any number of other genuine life changes occurred. The system simply hasn't caught up yet, and unless you do something about it, it won't catch up on its own until your tax return reflects the new reality, which can take an extra year or more to fully filter through. This is exactly what Form SSA-44 exists to fix. It allows you to tell Social Security formally that a specific qualifying event caused your income to drop, and to ask them to recalculate your premium using a more recent year's income instead of automatically defaulting to that 2-year-old tax return. Now here's the part that requires real precision, because getting this wrong is the single biggest reason these requests get denied. Social Security only accepts a defined, specific list of qualifying life-changing events. You cannot file this form simply because your investments had a bad year or because you chose to take less income for personal reasons. The event has to fall into one of 8 specific categories. The first is marriage. If you got married and that changed your tax filing status or your combined income picture, it can qualify. The second is divorce or annulment. If a marriage that combined 2 incomes has ended and your individual income is now lower than that combined figure, this can qualify. The third is the death of a spouse. Losing a spouse often means losing a second income or pension entirely, which is recognized as a qualifying event. The fourth is work stoppage, meaning you or your spouse completely stopped working, whether through retirement, a layoff, or selling a business you were actively running. The fifth is work reduction, meaning you're still working but significantly reduced your hours, which reduced your income accordingly. The sixth is loss of income producing property, but specifically loss that happened due to circumstances beyond your control, like a natural disaster, not a voluntary sale. The seventh is loss of a pension, meaning a pension you were receiving was reduced or eliminated, often due to an employer's financial troubles. And the eighth is receiving a settlement payment from an employer due to that employer's bankruptcy or closure, which is treated as a one-time event rather than ongoing income. I want to spend a moment on what does not qualify, because this trips up a meaningful number of people who file in good faith but get denied. Selling stock, even at a significant loss, does not qualify. Doing a Roth conversion, even though it temporarily raises your taxable income in unrelated ways, does not retroactively help you here either. A one-time capital gain from selling an investment property or a vacation home does not qualify, even though it might feel similar in spirit to some of the events that do qualify. The distinguishing principle running through the entire list is that the event has to be a recognized life change, things like retirement, marriage, divorce, death, or an involuntary loss, not simply a fluctuation in your investment returns or a voluntary financial decision. It helps to understand why the line gets drawn exactly there. The 8 qualifying events all share a common thread. They're significant, identifiable life transitions that fundamentally change your ongoing income going forward, not just a single year's tax outcome. Selling a stock at a loss doesn't change what you'll earn next year in any predictable way. Retiring does. That distinction between a one-time tax event and a genuine lasting shift in your income picture is really what Social Security is checking for when they evaluate one of these requests. Let me walk through a simplified example to make all of this concrete. Imagine someone who sold a business in the year before last, generating a large one-time gain that pushed their income well above the IRMAA thresholds for this year's premium calculation. By this year, with the business sold and no longer generating that income, their actual income has dropped to just Social Security and modest investment income, comfortably below the lowest IRMAA tier. Without filing anything, they would continue paying an elevated premium for this entire year based on income they no longer earn, simply because the system is still looking backward at the old tax return. By filing Form SSA-44, documenting the work stoppage as the qualifying event, and providing their current lower income estimate, Social Security can recalculate the premium using that more accurate current figure instead. In a case like this, the difference between staying at an elevated tier and dropping back down to the standard premium can run anywhere from around $13,000 to $28,000 in avoided surcharges, depending on exactly how high the original income spike was and how many months of the year are affected. Even smaller, more modest income drops, the kind that move you down just 1 or 2 tiers rather than eliminating the surcharge entirely, can still mean a difference of well over $1,000 a year, which is still real money for most retirees living on a fixed income. So here's what I want you to actually do, step by step. First, confirm that your situation actually fits one of the 8 qualifying categories I just walked through. If it doesn't clearly fit one of them, filing is unlikely to succeed, and it's worth speaking with Social Security directly before investing time in paperwork that may not change anything. Second, gather documentation specific to your qualifying event. For retirement or work stoppage, this might be a retirement letter, a final pay stub, or a severance statement. For marriage, an original marriage certificate or certified copy. For divorce, your final divorce decree. For the death of a spouse, a death certificate. For loss of a pension, a notice from the pension provider documenting the change. Having the right document ready before you file makes the entire process faster. Third, estimate your income for the more recent year. Social Security should use instead. If you've already filed a tax return for that year, you can simply provide the actual figure. If you haven't yet, you'll provide your best realistic estimate directly on the form. Fourth, submit Form SSA-44 along with your supporting documentation. You have several options here. You can submit it online through your My Social Security account, by fax, by mail, or by working directly with a Social Security representative over the phone. There's no strict hard deadline for filing after a qualifying event occurs, but submitting it as soon as possible after the event means you start benefiting from the correction sooner rather than later. Fifth, keep copies of everything you submit and watch for a decision letter from Social Security. If your request is approved, any excess premium you've already paid this year typically gets refunded, either through a direct deposit if that's how your Social Security benefit is paid, or through a mailed check. Going forward, your premium automatically reflects the lower, recalculated amount without you needing to do anything further until your circumstances change again. Sixth, if your income drops again the following year for the same underlying reason, you may need to file again, since this isn't necessarily a one-time permanent fix if your situation continues evolving. The form includes a section specifically for telling Social Security if you expect next year's income to be even lower, so they can plan ahead with that information, rather than you needing to start the entire process over from scratch each time. Let me answer a few more questions I hear often about this process. Does an approved SSA-44 reduce both Part B and Part D surcharges, or just one? Both. If your appeal is approved, the recalculation applies to the income-related surcharge on both Part B and Part D simultaneously, since they're both based on the same underlying MAGI figure. What if you're married and both spouses are on Medicare? Each spouse pays their own IRMAA surcharge individually, based on the household's combined income and filing status. So if a qualifying event affects your household income, it's worth checking whether both spouses' premiums need to be addressed through this same process. And what happens if your request gets denied? You're not out of options entirely. You can request a reconsideration, and if that doesn't resolve things, you can pursue a formal appeal through the standard Social Security hearing process. Many denials happen simply because the event didn't fit one of the 8 defined categories. So before appealing a denial, it's worth double-checking that the event genuinely qualifies in the first place, rather than assuming the denial was made in error. I also want to mention timing, because it matters more than people expect. There's no strict filing deadline tied to a specific number of days after your event, but Social Security generally cannot apply a correction retroactively beyond a certain point. And the sooner you file after a qualifying event, the sooner the lower premium and any refund actually start. If you've been sitting on a qualifying event from earlier this year without filing yet, there's no advantage to waiting any longer. Here's the honest full picture, one more time. Medicare premiums are calculated using your income from 2 years ago, which means a recent retirement, divorce, or the loss of a spouse can leave you paying a surcharge based on money you no longer actually earn. Form SSA-44 exists specifically to correct that mismatch, but only for a defined list of 8 qualifying events, things like retirement, marriage, divorce, death of a spouse, or an involuntary loss of income, not for investment losses or voluntary financial choices. Filing takes some paperwork and the right supporting documents, but the potential savings, sometimes running into the thousands of dollars a year, make this one of the more underused tools available to retirees whose income has genuinely changed. This is exactly the kind of correction that rewards a small amount of effort with a disproportionately large result. Unlike some of the more complicated strategies I've discussed on this channel, this one is largely binary. Either your situation fits one of the 8 categories, in which case filing is genuinely worth doing, or it doesn't. in which case you've at least confirmed that clearly rather than wondering about it indefinitely. If you know someone who recently retired, lost a spouse, or went through a divorce and is still paying a higher Medicare premium because of it, send them this video. A form most people have never heard of could be the difference between paying based on a life they used to have and paying based on the one they're actually living now. That's what this channel is here for. I'll see you in the next one.